My name is Isabel, and for most of my life, I believed in love stories that stood the test of time. I thought I had found mine with Ryan. We were high school sweethearts, the kind of couple people envied, inseparable, deeply in love, and always looking toward the future. We had spent years building a life together, creating a home filled with love and laughter. And most of all, we had a shared dream: to have a family. Having children wasn't just a vague idea for us, it was something we had planned in detail. We spent countless nights talking about baby names, imagining whether our child would have my dark eyes or Ryan's easygoing smile. We had envisioned a house filled with little footsteps, giggles echoing down the halls, and bedtime stories whispered under soft lamplight. It was supposed to be our destiny. But dreams have a way of turning into heartbreak when reality decides otherwise. At first, trying for a baby was exciting. Every month felt like a fresh chance, a new opportunity. We turned it into a game, playfully predicting whether we'd have a boy or a girl first. But as the months passed, excitement turned into quiet worry. A year went by, then another. Each negative pregnancy test felt heavier than the last, like a tiny weight pressing down on my heart. I tried to stay positive. People always said, "It'll happen when you least expect it." But what if it didn't? What if I was expecting it too much? The more time passed, the more I felt the silent pressure growing between Ryan and me. He never said much about it, but I could see the frustration in his eyes, the way he avoided talking about it, the way he hesitated before comforting me after each failed attempt. By the third year, something had shifted between us. We stopped talking about baby names. The nursery we once dreamed of became just another empty room. Our once playful discussions about the future turned into silence, like an unspoken understanding that neither of us wanted to admit. Something was wrong. So I made the decision. We needed to see a doctor. Ryan was hesitant. "Let's just give it more time," he said, his voice forced and unconvincing. But I wasn't willing to wait anymore. I needed answers. So I booked the appointment myself. The tests were routine: blood work, hormone checks, an ultrasound. Nothing too invasive, nothing too alarming. But as I sat in the doctor's office, waiting for the results, I felt a deep, gnawing fear that I couldn't shake. Then the words came. "Isabel, your ovarian reserve is extremely low. It's going to be nearly impossible for you to conceive naturally." The world around me blurred. My breath caught in my throat. Ryan sat beside me, silent. His fingers were wrapped around mine, but they weren't warm or reassuring. They felt cold, distant. The doctor kept talking, listing options: IVF, egg donors, hormone treatments. But I barely heard her. My mind was stuck on those two words: nearly impossible. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling my entire world unravel. I turned to Ryan, whispering, "We'll figure this out, right?" He didn't answer. He just turned away. The days following the doctor's visit felt like walking through a fog, thick, suffocating, and directionless. I tried to tell myself that this wasn't the end, that there were options, that science had made so many advancements. But no matter how many times I repeated those reassurances, they never truly settled in. And Ryan, he was slipping away. At first, I convinced myself that he was just processing the news in his own way. He had always been the type to retreat into silence when things got tough, to bury his emotions deep instead of letting them out. But this silence was different. It wasn't just grief. It was distance. I tried to talk about it, to bring up possibilities. "We still have options, Ryan. We can try treatments. There's adoption. We always talked about having a family, and it doesn't have to be this way." His responses were hollow. A nod, a vague, "Yeah, maybe," and then nothing. I tried to ignore the signs at first. The way he worked later and later. The way he suddenly had plans that he never mentioned before. The way he would glance at his phone and quickly turn it over when I walked into the room. But then, the first real crack appeared. It was a Friday night, and Ryan had told me he had to stay late for a work meeting. It was nothing unusual. His job had always been demanding. But something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. There was no eye contact, no kiss on the cheek as he usually gave me before leaving. It was like he couldn't get out of the house fast enough. An uneasy feeling settled in my chest. I wasn't usually the paranoid type, but I couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong. And for the first time in our marriage, I did something I had never done before. I checked his location. Ryan and I had always shared our locations on our phones. It was something we had done out of convenience, never because of mistrust. But as I stared at the screen, my breath caught in my throat. He wasn't at work. His location was pinging from a restaurant across town, an upscale, intimate place we had been to only a handful of times for special occasions. I felt a strange, slow-burning panic settle inside me. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe he was meeting a client. Maybe it was a surprise for me. But deep down, I already knew. My hands were trembling as I grabbed my car keys. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I had to see it with my own eyes. The drive felt both too fast and agonizingly slow at the same time. My heart pounded against my ribs, my knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel. And when I pulled into the parking lot, my worst fears were confirmed. Through the large restaurant windows, I saw him, sitting across from a woman. She was beautiful, polished, confident, everything I suddenly felt I wasn't. And the way he looked at her, it was a look I hadn't seen on his face in a long time. I watched in numb horror as he reached across the table, his fingers grazing hers, and she laughed softly, tilting her head in that flirtatious way that made my stomach twist. My phone was still in my hand. My fingers hovered over his contact. I could call him, confront him, make a scene. But instead, I just stood there, frozen, my world breaking apart right in front of me. I don't remember how long I stood outside the restaurant, watching my husband share an intimate moment with another woman. Minutes? Hours? Time had lost all meaning. My breath came in shallow, uneven gasps as I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind screamed at me to do something. Walk inside, confront him, demand an explanation. But my body refused to move. I was paralyzed, caught between fury and heartbreak, between disbelief and the crushing reality that the life I thought I had was slipping through my fingers. Then, as if sensing something, Ryan glanced up. For a fleeting second, his eyes met mine through the glass, and my stomach lurched. His face froze, his easy smile vanishing in an instant. I saw the flicker of recognition, the widening of his eyes as the color drained from his face. He knew. He knew he had been caught. The woman across from him, oblivious, continued talking. But Ryan wasn't listening anymore. His body stiffened, and I watched as he pulled his hand back from hers, straightening in his seat like a guilty man waiting for his sentence. I could have walked in right then, could have made a scene in front of everyone. But something in me, perhaps the last shred of dignity I had left, told me not to. I refused to let him see me shatter. Not here, not in public. Instead, I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving him trapped in his own panic. By the time I made it home, my hands were still shaking. The house, once our shared haven, suddenly felt cold, foreign. Every photo on the wall, every piece of furniture we had chosen together, felt like a lie. I sank onto the couch, staring blankly at the door, waiting. It didn't take long. Less than an hour later, the front door opened and Ryan walked in, his face pale, his expression carefully composed. But I could see the tension in his jaw, the forced calm in his movements. "Jessica," he started, voice gentle, as if speaking too loudly would break me. I don't, I cut him off, my voice surprisingly steady. Don't lie to me, Ryan. For the first time in our marriage, I saw a true panic flash in his eyes. He hesitated, and I knew in that moment that whatever he said next would determine everything. It's not what you think, he finally said, his voice too rushed, too rehearsed. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Really? Because from where I was standing, it looked exactly like what I think. He swallowed hard, running a hand through his hair. It was just dinner, just a work thing. Nothing happened. Then why did you lie to me? I shot back, my composure cracking. Why did you tell me you were at the office when you were sitting in a candlelit restaurant with another woman? Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he had no answer. And that silence? That was worse than any lie he could have told. Ryan stood there, his silence stretching between us like a chasm neither of us could cross. He'd always been good with words, quick to diffuse an argument with charm or carefully chosen excuses. But now, he had nothing. The weight of his guilt pressed down on him, and I could see it. How he was scrambling for a way out, a way to twist the narrative, to make himself the victim. But I wasn't going to let him. Say something, I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. Anything. Ryan let out a slow exhale, shaking his head. Jess, you're overreacting. It was just dinner. We were talking about work. Don't. My voice was sharper now, filled with something I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. Not just pain, not just betrayal. Rage. He flinched, like my words had struck him harder than a slap. You're standing in our home, lying to my face, I continued, stepping closer, my heart pounding. I saw you, Ryan. I saw how you looked at her, the way you leaned in, the way you... My throat tightened, cutting me off. I refused to cry. Not in front of him. Not for him. He ran a hand down his face, his frustration bubbling to the surface. It wasn't like that, Jess. Then what was it like? I demanded. Explain it to me. Make me understand why my husband, was on a date while I sat at home, thinking he was working late. Ryan looked away, his jaw tightening. He had nothing. Nothing. And that was the final nail in the coffin. I let out a hollow laugh, my body trembling from the sheer force of my emotions. You know what's funny? I said, my voice eerily calm now. I was going to surprise you. I had reservations made for us, a whole night planned, because I thought... I swallowed hard. I thought we were happy. Regret flashed across his face, but it was too little, too late. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. But you weren't at work, Ryan. You weren't stuck at the office, drowning in deadlines. You were with her. And you chose to lie to me. You chose to... My voice broke, and I hated myself for it. Ryan stepped forward, reaching for me, but I recoiled. The distance between us wasn't just physical anymore. It was something deeper, something permanent. Jess, please, he murmured, his voice pleading now. It didn't mean anything. I met his gaze, searching for something, anything, to convince me that this wasn't the end. That maybe, just maybe, we could fix what was already crumbling beneath us. But all I saw was a stranger. And in that moment, I knew I was done. Ryan stood frozen, his outstretched hand still lingering in the space between us. I could see the desperation in his eyes, the panic settling in now that he realized he had truly lost control of the situation. But I wasn't going to make this easy for him. I was done playing the fool. I took a step back, shaking my head. You don't get to touch me, Ryan, not after this. His hand dropped to his side, fingers curling into a fist. Jess, please. We can talk about this. Just let me explain. I let out a bitter laugh. Explain what, exactly? That you didn't mean to get caught? That it wasn't serious? That I'm supposed to ignore the fact that my husband is sneaking around with another woman? He opened his mouth, but no words came. He had no defense, nothing but empty excuses and half-hearted apologies. I crossed my arms over my chest, steadying myself. You know, the worst part of this isn't even that you cheated. It's that you lied to me like it was nothing. Like I wouldn't notice. Like I didn't matter enough to deserve the truth. His face twisted, and for a moment, I thought he might actually admit it. But instead, he did what cowards always do. He deflected. You haven't exactly been present either, Jess, he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. You're always busy with work, stressed about deadlines, caught up in everything except us. I stared at him in disbelief. So this is my fault now? That's not what I'm saying, he insisted, stepping forward again. But relationships take effort, and maybe we just let things fall apart. I felt my stomach turn. He wasn't just making excuses. He was rewriting our history, twisting the truth to make himself feel better. I inhaled sharply. You had a choice, Ryan. You could have come to me. We could have fixed this together. But instead, you chose to betray me, to lie to me. He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration growing. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I snapped. Because I saw you. I saw the way you looked at her, the way you smiled. That wasn't some accident, Ryan. That was a man who knew exactly what he was doing. His silence was deafening. I let out a shaky breath, my hands trembling. I want you out. His head snapped up. What? I want you out, I repeated, this time with more certainty. Tonight, get your things and go. Panic flooded his features. Jess, don't do this. Please, let's take a moment to think. No, I cut him off. I've done enough thinking, and you made your choice the second you walked into that restaurant with her. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't cry for him, not anymore. Ryan stood there, staring at me like he was waiting for me to take it all back, to tell him I didn't mean it. But I did. And the moment he realized that, I saw it. The moment he knew I was truly done. Ryan's face paled as my words settled between us like a final, undeniable truth. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His shoulders slumped as if the weight of his own actions had finally crashed down on him. But it was too late. He exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face before looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite place. Remorse, maybe. Or perhaps just fear of what came next. Jess, he started, but I held up a hand. No, I cut him off, my voice firm. No more lies, no more excuses, just leave. The man I had loved for years, the man I had built a life with, now stood before me as a stranger. The silence between us stretched, heavy and suffocating. I saw his jaw tighten, his chest rising and falling in quick, uneven breaths. Where am I supposed to go? He asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Not my problem. Ryan hesitated, his gaze darting to the living room, to the framed photos of us smiling in happier times, to the life we had built together. It was as if he was only now realizing what he had destroyed. And for what? A fling? A moment of weakness? For the first time, I felt nothing for him. No sadness, no longing, no second-guessing, just exhaustion. I never meant to hurt you, he said, taking a hesitant step toward me. I took a step back. Well, you did. The finality in my voice must have struck something in him, because his face twisted with emotion. But I didn't care. This wasn't my burden to carry anymore. Without another word, I walked past him, heading to the bedroom. I needed space, needed to be alone. The second I shut the door behind me, I pressed my back against it and let out a shaky breath. This was real. I had just ended my marriage. And yet, the overwhelming emotion wasn't sorrow. It was relief. Through the door, I heard Ryan moving around, his footsteps heavy with hesitation. Good. Let him feel the weight of his choices. I didn't know where he would go, and I didn't care. The betrayal, the lies, the countless moments of doubt. It all ended tonight. I glanced around our bedroom, my gaze landing on the nightstand where a framed wedding photo sat. Slowly, I walked over, picked it up, and stared at it. I barely recognized the woman smiling back at me, the one who believed in forever, who trusted without question. That woman was gone. And in her place, a woman who refused to be broken. I exhaled and with a steady hand turned the frame face down. This wasn't an ending. This was a new beginning. The door clicked shut behind Ryan, and for the first time in years, the house was silent. Not the tense, suffocating silence that had filled our marriage in those final months, but a silence that felt like freedom. I stood there for a moment, letting it sink in, letting myself breathe. He was gone. I should have felt broken. I should have collapsed onto the floor, sobbing over the wreckage of my marriage. But instead, I felt light. Like I had been holding my breath for so long that I had forgotten what fresh air felt like. Still, reality had a way of creeping back in. The house was filled with reminders of him. Our framed wedding pictures, the jacket he always left draped over the chair, the scent of his cologne still clinging to the air. Each object felt like a ghost, whispering memories of a life that no longer existed. But I wasn't going to let my past haunt me. I grabbed a box from the hallway closet and started erasing him. Every framed picture of us. Into the box. The little love notes he used to leave me before things fell apart? Gone. His clothes? Stuffed into garbage bags. I moved with purpose, fueled by something I couldn't quite name. Anger, maybe. Or survival. And then, as I was clearing out the nightstand, I found it. A small, crumpled piece of paper. At first, I almost tossed it aside, thinking it was another meaningless receipt or note. But when I unfolded it, my breath hitched. It was a receipt. From the hotel. The one where I had caught him. The date. Months before I ever suspected a thing. A cold chill ran down my spine. He had been lying to me for longer than I ever imagined. I clenched the paper in my fist, my nails digging into my palm. How many times had I sat across from him at dinner, completely unaware that he had just come from another woman's bed? How many lies had he fed me while I still believed we were happy? I took a deep breath and forced my fingers to unclench. This changed nothing. I had already won. I had already taken my power back. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I slept soundly. No tossing and turning, no waking up in a cold sweat, no reaching for Ryan in the dark. Just peace. The next morning, I woke up early, made myself coffee, stood by the window, and watched the sunrise. It felt like a rebirth, a second chance. I wasn't the same woman who had spent months doubting herself, questioning whether she was enough. I was more than enough. And as I sipped my coffee, watching the sky turn from dark to light, I realized something. Ryan was my past, but I was my future. If there's one thing to take away from this story, it's that self-worth is non-negotiable. No one deserves to be deceived, disrespected, or made to feel like they aren't enough. Vanessa's journey wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about finding her strength, choosing herself, and taking back control of her life. Too often, we hold on to relationships that have already crumbled, hoping things will magically change. But the truth is, when trust is shattered, the only person who can save you is you. What would you have done in Vanessa's place? Would you have fought for the relationship or walked away like she did? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life tales of love, betrayal, and self-discovery, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Cilla Reddit Stories. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve love, loyalty, and respect. Never settle for anything less. Stay strong, stay empowered, and we'll see you in the next story. If there's one thing to take away from this story, it's that self-worth is non-negotiable. No one deserves to be deceived, disrespected, or made to feel like they aren't enough. Vanessa's journey wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about finding her strength, choosing herself, and taking back control of her life. Too often, we hold on to relationships that have already crumbled, hoping things will magically change. But the truth is, when trust is shattered, the only person who can save you is you. What would you have done in Vanessa's place? Would you have fought for the relationship or walked away like she did? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life tales of love, betrayal, and self-discovery, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Cilla Reddit Stories. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve love, loyalty, and respect. Never settle for anything less. Stay strong, stay empowered, and we'll see you in the next story. If there's one thing to take away from this story, it's that self-worth is non-negotiable. No one deserves to be deceived, disrespected, or made to feel like they aren't enough. Vanessa's journey wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about finding her strength, choosing herself, and taking back control of her life. Too often, we hold on to relationships that have already crumbled, hoping things will magically change. But the truth is, when trust is shattered, the only person who can save you is you. What would you have done in Vanessa's place? Would you have fought for the relationship or walked away like she did? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life tales of love, betrayal, and self-discovery, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Cilla Reddit Stories. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve love, loyalty, and respect. Never settle for anything less. Stay strong, stay empowered, and we'll see you in the next story. If there's one thing to take away from this story, it's that self-worth is non-negotiable. No one deserves to be deceived, disrespected, or made to feel like they aren't enough. Vanessa's journey wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about finding her strength, choosing herself, and taking back control of her life. Too often, we hold on to relationships that have already crumbled, hoping things will magically change. But the truth is, when trust is shattered, the only person who can save you is you. What would you have done in Vanessa's place? Would you have fought for the relationship or walked away like she did? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life tales of love, betrayal, and self-discovery, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Cilla Reddit Stories. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve love, loyalty, and respect. Never settle for anything less. Stay strong, stay empowered, and we'll see you in the next story. If there's one thing to take away from this story, it's that self-worth is non-negotiable. No one deserves to be deceived, disrespected, or made to feel like they aren't enough. Vanessa's journey wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about finding her strength, choosing herself, and taking back control of her life. Too often, we hold on to relationships that have already crumbled, hoping things will magically change. But the truth is, when trust is shattered, the only person who can save you is you. What would you have done in Vanessa's place? Would you have fought for the relationship or walked away like she did? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life tales of love, betrayal, and self-discovery,